So here we are. After 5 years of arguing about whether Brexit will be good or bad for the UK, we're finally going to get some concrete answers, because from the 1st of January 2021, we're not just out of the EU, we're out of the EU customs union, we're out of the EU single market, we're out of Europol, because why not? So there's no longer any point in me arguing about all the damage that Brexit's going to do, because the events that you're going to see in the news over the next few years will settle that debate. But we need to learn from this, because there will be other Brexits. America just had its own temporary Brexit. Hell, we just had a Brexit and didn't even realise. We voted for a government that has spent the previous 4 years telling us they plan to go against all scientific and economic experts, and surprise, surprise, we ended up with the highest excess death rate in all of Europe in the first wave, and the worst economic recession of any G7 country. So Brexit and Tory voters, you may want to turn off at this point, but I really hope you don't, because I'm about to show you undeniable proof that the man who led Brexit from the start lied to the public about every aspect of it in order to make it happen. So as we start to see the consequences of it, I hope this helps the next time that somebody like Boris Johnson tries to win your vote. Here we go. So, one good way to know what Boris Johnson is going to do is to look at the things that he said that no UK Prime Minister should ever do. For example, he said that no UK Prime Minister should accept a Brexit deal that allows the EU to impose tariffs if we don't keep up with their standards.
If they pass a new law in the future with which we in this country do not comply or don't follow suit, then they want the automatic right, Mr. Speaker, to punish us and to retaliate. And I don't believe, Mr. Speaker, that those are terms that any Prime Minister of this country should accept.
And then here he is explaining his Brexit deal.
And if one side believes it's somehow being unfairly undercut by the other, then subject to independent third-party arbitration and provided the measures are proportionate, we can, either of us, decide as sovereign equals to protect our consumers or businesses.
The key difference between those two clips is, in the first one, Boris Johnson was trying to make the EU look unreasonable by saying they were trying to punish us by imposing tariffs. In the second one, he acknowledged the reality of international trade and said that if the EU put up tariffs because we gained the competitive advantage, it would be them protecting their businesses. But whichever way you look at it, he said no UK Prime Minister should ever agree to that, and then weeks later he did it. Next one. When Boris Johnson was Mayor of London, he gave a speech explaining how London owed its economic success to our membership of the EU, specifically the EU single market.
We will remain a paid up, valued, participating member of the single market. And there is under no circumstances, in my view, will a British government adjust that position.
And now,
from January the 1st, we are outside the customs union and outside the single market.
Now that first clip wasn't part of the Brexit campaign, but it does show that he knows the UK will be worse off outside of the EU single market, but he chose to take us out of it because it helped him become Prime Minister. And here's another. In 2018, he promised pro-Brexit unionists that Brexit would not split the union of the UK by leaving Northern Ireland in the single market.
We would have to leave Northern Ireland behind as an economic semi-colony of the EU. And we would be damaging the fabric of the Union with regulatory checks and even customs controls between Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Now, I have to tell you, no British Conservative government could or should sign up to any such arrangement.
Now, the reason we had an election in 2019 was because Boris Johnson couldn't get the first bit of his Brexit deal through Parliament. Why? Because it was being blocked by those same pro-Brexit unionists, because Boris Johnson had gone back on his word.
And I nearly choked when the Prime Minister said it. It's not really a boundary down the Irish Sea. They're just light touch regulations. Light touch regulations which require firms to make declarations when they sell goods to another part of their own country. The Prime Minister thinks I can't read the agreement.
Now here's Boris Johnson in 2016 promising that Brexit will not create any barriers to trading with the EU, including tariffs. Why? Because, let me get this right, 27 countries with a combined economy 5 times the size of ours need us more than we need them.
All those who say that there would be barriers to trade with Europe if we were to do a Brexit, do you seriously believe that they would put up tariffs against UK produce of any kind when they know how much they want to sell us their cake, their champagne, their cheese from France? It is totally and utterly absurd.
And I'm not here to argue that Brexit will create trade barriers. I'll let Boris Johnson do that.
Will the British service sector, especially the financial services sector, will they be able to do more trade or less trade?
There's some good language about equivalence for financial services, perhaps not as much as we would have liked. But
you also just said there would be no non-tariff barriers. Again, that's not right. From January the 1st, as a result of leaving the customs union, and Michael Gove has been warning about this week in, week out for months, there is a ton of new bureaucracy on British businesses, lots of new non-tariff barriers.
Exporters will need their AORI forms and everything else. People should be aware of the change that is coming.
Michael Gove's department has already said that paperwork like what Boris Johnson just mentioned will cost UK businesses exporting to the EU an extra £7 billion a year. Feels like a trade barrier to me. Now here he is accusing another MP of lying for daring to suggest that Brexit might threaten the Erasmus scheme, which lets thousands of UK students use their free movement rights to study in other European universities.
I'm afraid that the honourable gentleman is talking through the back of his neck. There is no threat to the Erasmus scheme.
And here he is saying that the UK is now leaving the Erasmus scheme because he doesn't want to pay for it.
On Erasmus, it was a tough decision. Erasmus was also extremely expensive. So what we're doing is producing a UK scheme for students to go around the world.
Fact. The Brexit rhetoric from politicians has had the common theme of focusing less on Europe and more on the rest of the world, hence the slogan, Global Britain. Follow-up question to that fact. Are working class kids in the UK more likely to be able to afford to study in France where tuition is free and you can literally get there by bus, or pay for flights to America and go through their visa process? Then on security, I want you to listen to what he said in 2016 very carefully.
Britain will continue to be a great European power, leading discussions on foreign policy and defence and intelligence sharing and all the work that currently goes on to make our world safer.
Anyone listening to that would say that he was reassuring people that we'd stay in Europol, that we'd keep the European arrest warrant that lets us compel EU countries to arrest people that we're after and send them back to us, and we keep access to the live data that UK police use to keep us safe 1.5 million times a day, but none of that is in his Brexit deal. And even a journalist from the very pro-Brexit Sun newspaper brought this issue up with Boris Johnson.
Are we going to be as safe next week under your new security partnership as we are today, given that Brussels are saying that they're going to lock us out of live EU databases?
Obviously framing it as the EU locking us out, even though Michael Gove says the reason we're not getting access to that data is because he doesn't want European courts to be able to tell us how to use it. So is Brexit done like Boris Johnson promised? No.
With the UK's share of fish in our waters rising substantially from roughly half today to closer to 2/3 in 5.5 years' time.
And according to the Brexit deal, that then gets reviewed 4 years after that. And the EU has already said that if we want to keep EU boats out of UK waters even more than that in future, then they're going to put tariffs on UK fish. So for those of you paying attention, that means the fishing issue around Brexit will not be resolved for another 10 years. And Brexit was supposed to be about getting the control of our laws that we need to make our country more competitive, but the deal we just did is specifically designed to make sure that if we use that newfound control to gain a competitive advantage over the EU, then there'll be more negotiations and possible tariffs at the end of it to eliminate that competitive advantage. So instead of Brexit being done, we've just made EU debates over fish sovereignty and tariffs a permanent feature of UK politics. Now, we all know that there are other lies that brought us here, but the issue right at the core of everything is expertise. Are the 16 million people who voted Remain all experts in EU law? No. Same for the Leavers. It's not about one side being smarter than the other, it's about who you choose to listen to. For example, Boris Johnson promised that Brexit would help the NHS. Yet since 2016, every UK medical body, from the British Medical Association to the Royal Colleges of Nurses, Midwives, Radiologists, GPs, have all come out and said that Brexit is bad for the NHS. And yet, the 44% who voted for the Tories in the last election either didn't mind damaging the NHS, or, when it came to the future of UK medicine, trusted a politician who'd studied Greek poetry at university and been fired from 2 newspapers for lying over the entire body of qualified British medical professionals. This Brexit mess is going to last years. Jobs will go. People will suffer. Lessons need to be learned, or we're just going to end up doing one Brexit after the other.